Welcome to the Let Him Cook podcast, fueled by Cody Road from the Wild Rose Casino Studios. Obviously, couldn't make it to the studio today. We're from home, but still want to shout out the sponsors. Another great win for Iowa State basketball. Finally getting into a week where we're going to see a bit higher competition. But first, some sad news. Hason Ward's injury came out yesterday. Left foot injury, out for the rest of the non-conference schedule. They made it sound like he'll still be playing this season. I would guess they would have come out and said season-ending injury if they think it's going to be that bad. So the silver lining is he's coming back. But just what do you think that does? We kind of saw it in action yesterday, but what does that do to the rotation without Ward in the lineup?
Yeah, I think it asks more out of obviously Jones, which I already think he's playing at a pretty high level coming off the bench. But even yesterday as he started, he did pretty well, just picking his spots, knowing when to score on his own and knowing when to kick it out to other guys. But I think it's just going to ask more of front court members. Potentially, there may be a situation where just due to foul trouble, Milan could be asked to run the 5 for a bit, and we could just be full on 5 out. And then obviously, Omaha showing a lot of better spurts in a game like yesterday. He's probably going to be asked to step up even more, which I think is going to be a huge opportunity for him that he can capitalize on. So I think there's a lot of positives to look at of Ward being out for this long. But I mean, you can almost look at it as like when Trey King was out until he got. Did he come back for Baylor? Is that the game he came back?
He might have been back for one non-conference game, and then he went to the Big 12 slate, but it was right around. I mean, he was right around the start of conference play.
Nonetheless, this team is this coaching staff, at least, and a lot of the returner players, they're used to this situation.
Right.
They've been through it before. So I think it's just a matter of asking other people to step up in the meantime. And I think that relies the heaviest on Rob Jones and Omaha Blue.
Nigel, I was going to get into this once we started talking about the game, but I was just thinking Jones has been so good off the bench so far, and he started a lot last year. And I think at times, his energy is truly what his that is what he brings to the table.
Right.
And what do we feel about Omaha starting at the 5, and then you still bring Rob Jones off the bench at least while Hason Ward is out? Do you think that's a good idea, or do you think keep it how it is?
I don't like Omaha at the 5. I think at the end of the day, he's still a 3-4 guy.
Right.
But I just think for minutes wise, that's naturally going to have to increase, and he's going to probably have to play a lot more 4 defensively. So I think I don't know. I think given the fact that he's a little foul frenzy already early in his career, I don't think it's smart to put him at the 5 and have him go down in the post and bang with other dudes. Pause. But nonetheless, I think, to see him obviously get that minute increase, but just more so at the 4 if you're going to put him in that front court for sure. So I don't think that's the best idea, but I never know with TJ. Sometimes he's kind of a wild card with some of his rotations, but that's just my 2 cents.
So yesterday's game on Sunday, noon game, always kind of a weird game. I remember going to those as a student, and it was usually after a football game because it's in November.
Right.
And the vibes are just kind of weird. It's like a matinee. Like I'm used to going to Hilton at 6 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night. So just weird vibes. I thought this one was going to be closer than what it ended up being. Grambling picked to finish second in their conference, and a familiar face on this Grambling team, Terrence Lewis. When you were a manager, was T. Lou on the team, or had he already transferred?
He was not, but T. Lou is that guy that like a bunch of guys had a lot of funny stories of.
Yeah.
And they said that, just wasn't the right fit for him program wise, but Duke could hoop, so he was definitely one of the, there's always, I feel like every year there's those guys that maybe don't pan out at Iowa State, but the team, because you see them on a day-to-day basis, you get a lot of those like funny stories, and you get to kind of know those kids more as a person. Like Blake Hinson was a good example of that. Like when I was manager, he didn't play all year, but he was there. So you really got to learn. Like Blake Hinson's hilarious. If you go see his account now, the stuff he does with Pitt, he goes to football games and like interviews people on the field and stuff, and like throughout his NIL. So he's a good kid too. But I think that's a good example of like that type of relationship where we don't get to see those people actually put on the cardinal and gold, but they were in the locker room every day for a season.
Terrence Lewis looked like he'd been in the gym too.
Yeah,
Like really the thing that stood out to me was he was so thin when he was at Iowa State. He was
right.
slim. I mean, he was a freshman, but now he's 23, I would guess. Looked
Yeah,
like dude's been in the gym. So had a tough game,
yeah.
6 points and fouled out, but good to see Terrence Lewis. I was shocked he was still playing college basketball. That COVID rule, man, it feels like guys have been playing college basketball for a decade. So
Yeah.
shout out to T. Lou.
Yeah, no, it's funny you say that. I feel like that's you can apply that feeling to a lot of teams this year,
Yeah,
and it hits harder this year with Kansas
yeah,
because as I watch them, like I feel like Deshaun Harris has been,
yeah.
in I feel like he's been like a Perry Ellis almost. I feel like he's been there forever. I feel like because we got to see Kevin McCullough in Texas Tech and then in
Right.
Kansas too, it's like, dude, how long are you gonna be here? You know,
It felt like he was at Texas Tech for 4 years, and he's been at Kansas for at least 3.
yeah,
So I can't math right now, but that especially when a guy transfers in conference, it's like,
yeah,
dude, we saw you hit the transfer portal, and I was like, great, we'll never have to play that guy again. And then he just goes to Kansas.
yeah.
That's real.
And then even with Dickinson, like you're not playing him in a Big 12 schedule, but it's like he's been in college basketball forever at this
Yeah,
point, and he's not going anywhere. He's just making them better at the end of the day. So
yeah.
that's definitely it's a Perry Ellis team, to say the least, up in Lawrence.
Uh, Taman Lipsey, again, this is the second game he's been the leading scorer against Grambling. Finished with 17 points. He also led Iowa State in scoring at halftime, so he did it in both halves. And then 2 for 4 from 3-point land. And that is exactly where I want that to be. I don't want him taking 7 shots from 3 in a game. But if you can shoot 3 to 4 and hit 2 of them, that is exactly, I think, what you and I mean, that was a dream, right? Like that
Yeah,
wasn't even like that's what we hoped. I thought that might be too lofty of expectations coming into the season, but he's delivered on that so far.
yeah. It seems to be those corner threes.
Yeah,
He's a lot more confident taking, which you should be. It's the closest 3-point shot on the court, and then the one that always seems to be a lot open a lot given his position is that high ball screen at the top of the key. A lot of guys go under it,
right.
just because probably watching a lot of last year's film, and I think he's really got to take advantage of that because I think he's been so good off the drive this year
Yeah,
that the second people start to bite on that shot, it's a wrap. You blink and he's already at the rim. He's getting to the rim at such a quick rate, and then he's also so strong. He's just bouncing off dudes, who are trying to contest at the rim. So I think he's going to be a lot more threatening offensively going forward, given the fact that he's just shooting so well from 3 already.
and going off that, our pick and roll offense is probably the best it's maybe been since Monte Morris. I mean,
Yeah,
having Taman Lipsey running it, we have lob threats at the 5, and then we have shooters all across the perimeter. I mean, it's really a pick your poison. And if Lipsey makes the right decision, we're going to get a bucket off a pick and roll more often than not. So just
yeah,
kind of loaded, and it's tough to defend. That's why the pick and roll has been run since the dawn of basketball. And I think this is going to be a team that runs it really well.
well, and two, like I love how I think the addition of Curtis has given us such leeway to like it puts the defense in a predicament of like they don't know who to really fully help on
Right.
because you don't want to you want to stop Gilbert and Lipsy from getting to the rim, but you also don't want to try to run Jones off the line all the time, because it's one quick bite on him and he's either going to shoot it like he did. I know he had a few quick pump fakes and then just got the ball off quick and hit threes. But he can also just kick out to a cutting Lipsy who, despite as good as he is off the dribble, Taman is a phenomenal slasher. I think
Yeah.
he's one of those point guards that can get to the rim with ease off the ball. So I think you can attack a lot of teams from a lot of different aspects, and a lot of it's just off of like reading and reacting.
And Lipsy really good at finishing around the rim and creative because he is a smaller guard and he has
Right.
those layup packages where it's high off the backboard. DeJuan Harris is really good at that too, where they just get it the right angle. It's almost like a scoop layup and
Mhm.
they lay it off the rim. And he's been really good at that so far. The score at halftime, Nigel, I saw your tweet, looked like a football score, looked like a football final score. It was
Yeah, like
48
that's
to
a bad
14.
football loss
Yeah.
at halftime.
Yeah.
So
That
I was appalled.
Yeah, 48 to 14 is pretty astounding. Grambling had 12 turnovers in the first half and 14 points. So a tough 20 minutes of basketball for the Tigers. Really just like the defense did not let up that whole first half. They were just 24/7 around the clock, hounding defense, pressure. Ken Palm, Iowa State's Ken Palm right now is nasty. First in steal percentage. They're first in a bunch of stuff, and there is 300, I want to say 58, 364 D1 teams. So to be first in anything is rare. We're first in steal percentage, opponent 2-point percentage, turnover percentage, and second in adjusted efficiency in defense. So just gaudy defensive numbers early in the season. Played some bad offenses, but man, this defense is as good as it comes.
For a second, before we get off to the next subject, if you could explain to our audience, the significance of KenPom and
Sure.
why it seems to be your number one source. If you were writing a paper, I feel like a lot of your sources would be from KenPom. So tell the audience the importance of it and what it brings to you as a basketball fan. What other aspect of information does it provide for the sicko of the basketball world?
So college basketball, there is so much of it. I love college basketball, but there's probably 30 games today, and there's just no, unless you don't have a job and your job is to watch college basketball, there's just no way you can fit that much in. So Ken Palm does a really good job of, maybe I'll only see Louisville play 2 full games this whole season. I can go to their Ken Palm and figure out, okay, what's this team good at? What aren't they good at? What are their weaknesses? What do they bring to the table? And it's more than just a box score. I mean, it's advanced metrics. It's their defense. It's their offense. It's how much they turn the ball over, how much they force turnovers, offensive rebounding, defense. I mean, it's the gambit. So it really just melts all this information into one digestible page where you can kind of figure a team out without watching a whole bunch of film on them. Still recommend watching as much basketball as you can, but it's just a nice cheat sheet to have and really shows how good or bad your program is doing at a quick glance. So I love Ken Palm. Shout out Ken Pomeroy. I don't know. I'm definitely not a numbers guy. I avoid math classes at an elite level in college, but thank you for building this formula because it is seriously. I go to Ken Palm probably 5 times a week. So I'm a regular on that website.
Well, shout out to Ken Palm. If you're watching this, we take
a big fan.
That'd be sick.
Big fan, Ken Palm. Omaha, like we said, big game. I think finally looking comfortable.
Yeah.
Had more minutes than he's had, but really did a good job finishing around the rim. Momcilovic found him on some cuts. Lipsy found him. So also shout out to guys just getting him the ball and letting him work, but did a really good job. 6 for 7 from the field, 14 points. What was the difference here that you saw in Omaha's game that you didn't see in the first 3?
I think he said it best, and I saw his post-game interview. He said just keeping it simple. And I think, like we talked about earlier, just, a lot of other baggage being first 5-star recruit. You're from Iowa, a lot of pressure on you. Just those easy games where you feel like you can go out and score 20. You need to go score 20, and I think that was kind of affecting him. And I think, with Omaha's coming into a unique situation where he's not coming into the Kentuckys and the Dukes and the Kansases and those other blue blood programs where they're going to adapt their system to you and what you can bring to the table. Omaha is a 5-star recruit that is going into a system nonetheless, and he's got to be able to see and ask himself, how can I be the most successful in this system? And there's got to be spots on the floor where he knows I can score here and score efficiently. That dunker spot is going to be his best friend this year.
Yeah.
And I know it's not the most popular place to be on the floor. I know a lot of people think it's boring. It's not, useful, but it's very useful given the fact that we have such good drivers who are willing to draw in a lot of guys. And then quick dishes, whether it's a bounce pass or up top lobs. It's easy basketball at the end of the day. And he doesn't realize, I think, once he gets real good at it, that's an easy 10 to 12 points just under the basket. And given his athletic ability, then he can start to come out to the perimeter, start to cook out there. And you're looking at potentially, 15 point per game scorer, if given those open shots on the perimeter. But I think just knowing that what that part of the court, the significance it holds in his role and what he can do in that role if he's aggressive, especially with Ward out. He's going to have the opportunities, and he's going to be asked to actually produce more on offense now. So I just like to see that his feet are finally getting wet. I loved the move he did in transition, the Euro step,
Yeah,
like reverse
fancy.
layup. Yeah, very, very nice. He just seems like he's getting back to his old self, and I think that's what everyone was waiting for initially. And I'm glad he's just kind of getting over that hump now.
Yeah, look good in transition. I think the baseline, like you said, that is kind of where he's going to set up shop, and he is really good. A lot of the like any NBA draft predictions you'll see, he'll be called like a raw athlete, a bit of a project. His footwork is not raw. He has good up fakes. He has good pivots. I mean, he's very sound on footwork on the block. I think when they're talking about raw, it's more on the perimeter, which he'll probably, I would guess he'll play a 3, maybe a stretch 4 at the NBA.
Yeah.
But here, I mean, he really can't. His athleticism is just so high in college basketball. In the NBA, a lot of guys are like that, but not in college, especially not at Grambling or Green Bay or, I mean, the teams we've been playing so far. So, yeah,
I must say, Grambling's size was like alarming. It was like they looked like a really good JUCO.
yeah.
Like you're gonna get a lot of just really good undersized kids, and they just like were out of place the whole game. But I was like, dude, the biggest guy is like 6'5".
And that whole conference, I'm guessing you don't watch a lot of SWAC basketball, but that whole conference, it's a lot of like their tallest guy is going to be 6'7", and they play. It's like low scoring games. It's kind of dogfight basketball. Usually end up being a 16 seed, whoever makes it out of that conference. But
Yeah,
that's kind of how they all play.
yeah, and I mean, you talk about SWAC. I mean, despite them lacking size, I mean, they're good at the end of the day.
Yeah.
They just Jackson State just beat Missouri yesterday. Sorry, Caleb Grill.
Yeah.
But you know, it's just that despite the size, I mean, they got a lot of heart, I guess. But
And this Grambling team, they beat Colorado last year, and I want to maybe beat Vanderbilt too. I know they had 2 Power 6 wins, so I mean they've had success, but they just not yesterday. And I think true to that, our size really just give them. I mean, they just could not pass around us. They couldn't drive on us. They couldn't shoot. And when you can't score, it's hard to win basketball games. So as Iowa State fans know, I should add. But Curtis Jones, another player I want to shout out, 3 from 6 from beyond the arc. He's been labeled streaky. Looked like a good streak yesterday. Got some range too. I mean, he's had a couple threes so far where he's pulling up 3-4 feet behind the arc. Again, I'm just thinking like the more we drive the ball and kick it out, when you have Curtis Jones, if he's on, and Momcilovic at the perimeter, I truly don't know what you do. Both those guys can drive too if you close out too fast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, Curtis has been great. I don't like the term streaky shooter. I think it kills. I think as the media, we can kill a shooter's confidence.
Yeah.
If we continue to call someone streaky, I think it's just a matter of mechanics. If you're in a slump, it's usually your mechanics are off. Something is wrong. The elbow isn't tucked. The feet aren't set. The release point isn't high. Something like that. I feel like the nights where Jones goes off, 50% behind the arc. I mean, I think that's the sheer sign of what his potential is, and I think, you keep putting the work in, keep getting those shots up. And, it's adamant to be in Hilton shooting as much as possible because that dark background and the depth perception is similar in almost every actual arena. And it's just not the same shooting background you get in Sukup, the practice facility, so I think it's a matter of just, getting those reps. And I think Curtis is if he continues to shoot the ball confident, we may be looking at a light-skinned Matt Thomas, and that's exciting for this team.
And I think I'm glad you brought up Matt Thomas. I think Hoiberg gave all Iowa State fans kind of this jaded view of 3-point shooters because you had Matt Thomas, you had Naz Long, you had Monte Morris, you had George Niang, you had shooters all over the court all the time. Early on, Tyrese McGee, Chris Babb, so on and so forth. And the other fallacy that comes along with this, so a good 3-point shooter is like 40% from 3. I mean, that's a really good 3-point shooter. That means he's going to miss 6 of his 10 shots.
Yeah.
So I think like even a good 3-point shooter, there's a better chance that he's going to miss it than he's going to make it. So I think it's a little unfair. A guy goes, 1 for 4, 0 from 3 in a few games. I don't think that makes him a bad shooter. It's just like mathematically, you're not going to make, 100% of your threes that you take. It's just impossible.
Now, the thing is, I mean, I think if you showed that you can hit half your shots in a game,
Yeah.
there very much could be a game this year. And probably it's better that it's probably for a game that we need him in, but where he could go perfect from three. We've seen it happen. You
Right.
know, it's not unrealistic, but you know, we can't bank on that at the end of the day. But yeah, Curtis is I think he's gonna do a lot of good things for us, shooting wise. I think you can run a lot of good sets for him too. Just a lot of like elevator screens, floppy action, you know, things of that nature. But yeah, no, I think he's done great for us. And who was the other player you brought up too? Milan.
Yeah, Momcilovic.
I wanted to talk about him because I love what he's doing as of right now. I think he's like TJ said, he's a complete basketball player,
Yeah.
and I don't think there's a better word to describe him at the moment. But I just hope that as teams start to hone in on him, because he's probably scouting wise going forward, that he's able to handle that actual physicality of like some grown men
Right.
tossing you around. I mean, is that 19-year-old going to be able to handle that mentally and not try to, you know, egg on the shoving match, but you know, continue to play his game. You know, I think if he can master that at 19, he's going to be a dangerous player, and I could already see it he in his confidence. He's walking around like he's been there before, and I think that's good to see out of a freshman.
And he's unselfish too. I mean, he's had a great start to the season, and like you would think that might inflate his ego. He's going to start taking bad shots because he's had a really good start. I haven't really seen that. He's been good at passing the rock. He shoots it when he needs to. I mean, he's not scared to shoot right now. But it's good to me that he's not playing hero ball. Like
Yeah,
he's not out trying to get 30. I mean, he's just taking what the defense gives him and he's making good decisions. So I think it's important too that he stays grounded and he's our leading scorer right now, which I am, that's amazing to me. I wouldn't have thought in a million years. I expected him to come off the bench, get 5-6 points, hit a couple threes. But no, our leading scorer after 4 games.
yeah. If you told me on November 5th he was going to be our leading scorer, I'd
Right.
have called you crazy. And to add to it, he was one of those players that like I was so happy to have him, but I didn't know how they were going to use him. I didn't know how reliable of a stretch forward he was. And then you see him knock down a few shots in practice, and then it's like, okay, he showing spurts, but I just didn't know it was going to be at this high clip. So I'm very very excited to see what this Thanksgiving tournament is going to be a good test for him, I think.
And I think too, Iowa recently has put out some really good prospects, but I forget the step above that Illinois high school basketball, Minnesota high school basketball, Wisconsin high school basketball. I mean, he was playing D1 players throughout high school and throughout, AAU. So it's not like he was in a small town in Wisconsin just putting up crazy numbers. I mean, he was
Right.
at a big Wisconsin school, Pewaukee, and playing really good teams. I mean, we've seen Tyrese Halliburton obviously come out of Wisconsin, Tyler Hero. So, there's a lot of NBA players that come out of Wisconsin,
Yeah.
and he certainly looks like he's going to be one of them.
Yeah, no, the Midwest is definitely stepping it up.
Yeah,
I think Iowa is safe to, after being at the prep level during my internship, seeing a lot of the hoop scene there. I mean, it's very promising, and I think TJ is very excited about that. Just given that that means a lot of opportunity to get a lot of local kids, and I
right.
think just as a whole, the Midwest is an underrated hoop scene. I think a lot of people give the Californias, the Texases, the New Yorks of the world, they give those guys the benefit of the doubt. But don't sleep in the Midwest, man. We got some dudes.
And correct me if I'm wrong here, especially in Iowa, I feel like there's just a lot of good high school basketball coaches that coach team basketball and they coach system first offenses. They're not running ISO plays for a 17-year-old. I don't care if he's Omaha Blue or just, some random kid. Like they're playing motion offense, flex offense. Like they're playing like team basketball. And I think a lot of AAU now is, you get in an ISO, you have a little ball action top of the key, and then you go get a bucket.
Yeah.
I think it helps a lot, especially when you're playing in these college systems, because it's not a lot of ISO ball in college either. So I think a lot of these guys grew up in system offense, and it helps when you get to that next level. You're an unselfish basketball player, and that's usually winning basketball in college.
Yeah. And I think too, like you want to give credit to, a lot of these guys are taking time to go to the right trainers.
Yeah.
and go and put in that right off-season work and where you're getting meaningful reps in everything you're doing. And it's just showing, man. I mean, we look at just the 5-1-5 and the products that have come out in the recent years. I mean, it's really cool to see right outside of the metro area what is accessible to these kids, the facilities, some of the AAU programs are top tier, and you're just they're being led in the right direction. So once they're at this level, they're flourishing, and
Right.
I think these kids are just a prime example of them.
We had 5 players finish in double digits. Final score was 92-37. And like I said, Grambling supposed to be a lot of basketball left to play this year, but Grambling was supposed to be the best team we had played thus far and just eviscerated them. So, I mean, just a really good 40 minutes of basketball from Iowa State. It was a complete 40 minutes. Another thing I want to talk about with Hason Ward being out, we saw Caden Fish get some first half minutes just in like some of the doldrums of the first half. Do you think Caden Fish could be getting, 5-10 minutes a game through non-conference?
Yeah, I honestly forgot about mentioning him when it comes to front court members stepping up, but he's probably going to be asked to be that eighth man.
Right.
Come in to just make that impact off the bench. But yeah, I think given just his versatility of you being able to plug him in anywhere defensively, I think he's going to be able to get a lot of opportunities come Thanksgiving and coming forth with the rest of the out of conference schedule. And I think he's shown spurts of just his effort is really high level. And I think if you're not going to be that prolific scorer like Milan as a freshman, that's the least you could do, and it's going to get you on the floor, especially in TJ's system. So, yeah, I think we could see a lot of good things out of Caden.
And it's never a good time to lose a starter, especially to injury. But thankfully, a lot of front court depth on this team. I think it will allow Omaha, Caden Fish to kind of flourish a little more minutes. They get more comfortable, and then, they're ready to go once their number is called in January and February. So, I want Hason Ward back as soon as he's fully healthy, but I'm excited to see some of these guys step up in his absence and see what they can do.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting.
Looking forward, we have the ESPN Invitational Tournament. This is Feast Week. Shout out to those who celebrate. This is kind of the first week where we're seeing Power 6 teams play each other, whether it's in Maui or, Atlantis, or there's just tournaments all across really the country this upcoming week over Thanksgiving. Iowa State headed to Orlando, and I want to say that the gym we're playing in was used during the NBA bubble. And if you were looking at shooting numbers during the NBA bubble, some of those guys looked unhuman. I mean, they were shooting the lights out.
TJ Warren looked like Michael Jordan.
Yeah, LeBron won the fakest ring of all time because those hoops weren't Mickey Mouse ring. But I digress. Just everybody was hot in the bubble, and some of that I wonder if it was like basketball in a vacuum. Like those guys had nothing else to do other than hoop. So some of it might have been just dudes were dialed in by default. But I'm anxious to see if this will, are we going to shoot 60% from three like some of those NBA teams were?
Yeah, I mean, okay, I don't want to say yes into that question, but I think there's just going to be a lot of high level basketball.
Yeah.
The thing with the bubble is like people constantly, talk about how it's the fakest ring,
It is. It is.
Let me.
He won it in October is when he won that ring.
October
That's
11, 2020.
Yeah, not even basketball season.
Yeah, it was I think it was a Monday. It's a good day.
Gross.
Anywho, yeah, people talk about the fakeness of that run, but it had some of the best basketball. And you throw in some situations like the Clippers where they played some of their worst basketball, and people are going back. Podcast P is getting on his platform and saying, it was the darkest 90 days of my life. I couldn't get it together. And it's like, so if guys are going through, mental breakdowns and someone manages to win that championship, how is that a Mickey Mouse ring? That seems pretty hard if you ask me.
I mean, Jamal Murray and Donovan Mitchell both look like prime Kobe just playing against each other.
Okay, but that's also a prime example of what was to come in Jamal Murray's later years.
Yeah,
They gave Jamal Murray a crowd, and he turned into Steph Curry.
it
And
really is.
so,
It was like a catalyst. It was weird. I mean, you saw the Nuggets really start to pop off. You saw the Suns. I don't know how many games they won to even be like they had to win out in order to even make the playoffs, and they almost did. I think they did win out, but they lost a tiebreaker or some bullshit.
right.
So
Well,
it was a crazy time in basketball.
And here's the thing. This Final Four of the NBA teams from the previous season, 2023, it was a repeat of the bubble. So I don't think that was that much of a fluke. I really don't. I'm no genius, you know. I'm not a big numbers guy, but
Sure.
I think that kind of debunks that statement, you know. On top of Paul George going through a mental breakdown, I think that was a pretty tough time for hoopers, you know. So I think Iowa State will play well, given the fact that, you know, they've been on a great run. They've had a great 4 games, and I think they're great confidence builders. You know, it's not like we can go out there and say, oh, we beat a tier 1 opponent, but nonetheless, right. I think that mojo in that type of arena is going to give, I think, them a good shooting performance potentially. And overall, just you love the vibes of Thanksgiving because, you know, everyone is more relaxed. You could see it last year when we played Carolina.
Right.
It's a week where it's just ball, no school. I know a lot of academic advisors are big on, you know, just everyone get the work done and out the way if you can. So, you know, this week can be just, you know, I know they try to have some fun here and there, go out on the beach and enjoy the scenery of wherever they are. But I think when you're in a situation where it can just be hoops, you tend to get some of your best basketball. And I think that's what Thanksgiving tournaments are for, whether it's the Maui tournament, whether it's Orlando or et cetera, et cetera. I think just wherever you are, you're going to get a high level of basketball, not just through Iowa State, but nationwide.
And I think last year going into PK, what was it, 90, 95? Yeah. We had nothing to lose, so to speak. We were kind of an under the radar team still.
I still think we don't have anything to lose now.
I think the difference is we have something to prove. I think we look good, but it's been against, you know, kind of, no offense to the 4 teams we played, but bad competition. Now let's go play some real teams and see how we stack up. So I think it's a similar vibe, but I think the expectation of last year's team and this year's team are a little different. So I'm excited to see how that's going to translate when we play, you know, VCU, a Virginia Tech, a Boise State, FAU, A&M. We're going to play some of those teams, and I want to see how we stack up. So I'm excited.
I hope we get not A&M, excuse me, FAU, because you know this. Yeah, you know this from last year, but I was really not a fan of them. Everyone was kind of just happy that they're like the ugly girl at prom, and she's just happy to be there. And everyone's like, "Oh, look at her go!" And it's like, dude, no, Kansas State should have been in the Final Four. I still can't get over that. But I really want the whole top 10. They're a top 10 program in the country. I want to put that to bed before Christmas. So I think if Iowa State, if you can do that, do me this solid, please, because I can't stand FAU.
Metrically speaking, might have been ugly from the outside. Metrically speaking, they were a great team last year, and that was one of my deep Ken Palm takes. The numbers that I put together, they were better than Purdue. So when Purdue lost to the 16 seed, but had they met up, I think FAU probably would have beat Purdue anyways. So shout out to the numbers
though, season wide. Like,
I think CUSA is what they're in, or they might be in the American now. They might have been a team that switched over, but I mean, they're not playing great teams.
Yeah, I mean, we could probably go play at FAU right now, dude.
Probably, like, I would compare it maybe a step above Missouri Valley is kind of how I would call their conference.
Is Missouri Valley not a D2 school?
In football, they are. Missouri Valley is probably one of the best mid-major, and the American and CUSA is kind of right on the line of mid-major / major conference. Yeah. So they're kind of in a weird middle ground, but.
Right. Yeah, no, I bring them on.
Sure. I feel the same way. I think we will be the best.
Where yet? That's how I feel about FAU. Bring them on. Where are you? Pull up, please. Wow.
I really think A&M's supposed to be good this year. I think FAU, A&M, and Iowa State are kind of the three top teams that are going to be at this tournament. FAU and A&M start on the other side of the bracket, so we'll have to get to the championship to play either one of them. So start with VCU. I do want to shout out a player, Zeb Jackson, started his college career at Michigan. He's their leading scorer and leading in assists. Kind of a score first, do it all on offense for VCU. I will say VCU kind of a shaky start to the season. Lost to McNeese State in their season opener. Beat Seattle University by 4 over the weekend. So they're not winning games by a bunch, and they've played some tougher teams than we have. But I wouldn't call McNeese State or Seattle University powerhouses. So they've looked a little shaky. They're a defense team before they're an offense team, and that's kind of how they've been since Shaka Smart was there. So probably again the best defense will play so far, but I think our defense can really, do similar things to what we've seen to the first 4 games.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good test, and the strong guard play is going to be a great test for Taman. I think he's kind of been, I don't know if this has been a message to him, but just the way his approach has been, it seems like he's been using these lower level competitions just tune-ups, it just to be fully locked and loaded and ready to go against that better competition. And I think when you have a good point guard on the other end, I think Lipsey's probably over there licking his chops, ready to go, and just like you said, I think he's got a lot to prove individually because he was. It's impressive to be that freshman leading a lot of older guys on the floor as a point guard, but now it's like, all right, what are you going to bring to the table? And I think this is going to be a great platform for Lipsey to showcase that.
And also, he's probably going to have to exert a little more energy on the defensive side throughout this whole tournament. So I want to see, is that going to affect how aggressive he is on offense? Is he going to use some of that, that 100% speed on defense a little more often? He's going to have the same juice on the other end. So
I think
we'll find out about that.
Jackson is going to, I think, have to defensively probably come in there and help with some of that defensive load. Just because, for numbers purposes, that's why he's there. If he's going to play that Caleb Grill role, be ready to come off that bench and be all guns blazing on offense and on defense, just be an absolute hound.
The other, I'm sure a lot of Cyclone fans will make the trip, but first game not in Hilton. Like you said, it is just a weird, and this probably looks more similar to Sukup than it will Hilton. It's a field house. I think the ends of the gym are relatively close to the court. So just talk about how does that, are you getting more shots up and shoot around? What is kind of does your, practice going into it change at all? Does your preparing, is that any different?
You're saying, I need to know how the facility looks.
So, so there's probably movable bleachers that are going to be put behind the baseline, and then it's wide, but it's not long, if that makes sense.
How's the crowd look like? Is it like Maui where everything's kind of lit up?
And it's like
Maui's is like a field house,
right? And the roof at this one it's not like glass, but you can see sunlight coming through. It makes for weird televised and this place isn't built for basketball year round. Is kind of, and the same thing in the Bahamas. You play in a ballroom. So all of these tournaments, they just kind of get played in nice cities but weird venues.
Yeah, and I think the weird venue a lot. You don't want the whole a ballroom. You don't want that whole area lit up, or it's just not naturally going to be lit up. But I think whether just for compensation of most likely it's going to be a dark background. Try to get as much shots as you can in Hilton. If I don't know when they're taking off exactly, but at least I hope today they're getting those shots up as we're doing this on Monday. I hope they're getting those shots up and just getting used to that dark background because it's going to be a lot of arenas going forth. I know in the tournament that's the reality is a lot of those arenas have just those darker shooting backgrounds. So it's going to be you want to play on the big stage. That's what it's going to. That's what the reality of it is going to be. So.
We've talked about some of the teams that are going to be there between, FAU, A&M, Virginia Tech, Boise State. Is there any of those teams? We've already talked about FAU a little. Any of those teams that you really want to see us play?
the term CS play is weird because like if I could have an easy way to the championship, I would take
Right.
it.
Take it.
But
Sure.
I think if not FAU, I think in that championship, I don't who. So we play VCU.
Yep. We will play the winner or lose.
Yeah.
If we win, we'll play the winner of Boise State, Virginia Tech.
Okay. So yeah, it's looking like you're probably gonna have an A&M or FAU championship if you want to
Yep.
make it that far. But yeah, I think Virginia Tech, if they make it to the second round, that'll be a good semifinal. That'll be a good test because I know they have a decent front court. And then on top of it, A&M is just scrappy and they got a lot of I think they play a lot similar to our style. Is Buzz Williams still there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So I mean,
probably saved his job if he would have lost. No, I remember he was on the hot seat, but they did lose in the first round of the tournament last year. But I'm almost positive he's still the coach.
They were in Des Moines. They lost.
Yeah, they lost to Penn State.
So, yeah, I mean, I still like Buzz Williams. I think they're a well coached team, and I think they just play hard. And I think a team that kind of plays similar to us in spurts, that could be a dogfight. So given if that's the championship, I mean that's going to be a good one too. So I think whether it's FAU or A&M, it's going to be a good championship. But the Virginia Tech potential semifinal is going to be interesting because they're also sneaky and they could probably, if we do lose, I wouldn't be shocked if we lose to them.
Yeah. A&M and Boise State probably play similar basketball to us, just have long athletes, play really good defense. Virginia Tech and FAU a little more prolific of an offense, although it's so far Iowa State has had both. So a good variety of teams. They play different styles of basketball. I am not, declaring that Iowa State's going to win this tournament, but I think we've played some really, really good basketball so far. So I'm excited to see what it brings. A lot of good basketball this week, a great week. I know a lot of people have a couple days off at the end of the week, so sit down. I know there's football on. There's going to be a lot of good basketball on too. So a lot of good games. Just a quick summary. Texas won a nail biter to Louisville, who's, I don't know. Louisville's supposed to be really bad. They've looked bad already. Texas needed a buzzer beater from Max Ames to get past them. What does that tell you about Texas? Are you hitting a panic button yet, or is this just a shaky game that they sneaked out of?
I think going into the year, given how high profile of a transfer Max was, I think Texas, they were kind of relaxed, like, oh, we'll be back. Because I think you don't realize Tyrese Hunter is only 6'1".
Yeah.
And those two together are not the biggest backcourt in the world. And Marcus Carr, like, I interviewed him last year, March Madness. He's a pretty big dude.
Yeah.
I think he's around 6'3", 6'4" area.
He was built though too.
Yeah, nonetheless,
he's like a forward.
Again, pause. But
yeah,
he's they lack now backcourt size, and I think people are gonna just pick at them, and Tyrese is gonna have to be, more of that defender, and maybe more in that Marcus Carr role where he's gonna have to take on the heavier load when it comes to those having to guard those bigger guards. And I think, Louisville, a lot of it, I think, is just up here now. A lot of people, it's one thing when, a lot of people start to say, oh, they're bad. But I think, at some point, kids, they start to believe it. And I think they're probably at this point where it's just like, we have nothing to lose. I think this whole year, Coach Payne's going to be on the hot seat. So you might as well go out guns blazing. I think that's a great loss for them. And I think that if they keep their foot on the gas, I mean, they're going to be a genuine threat in the ACC, because aside from, Duke and Carolina, the ACC is wide open. And I think it's a team like that is going to need like that conference tournament to make a tournament bid if you really want to make a run. But nonetheless, to go on to Texas, I think they just lack backcourt size. I think if we catch us on a good day, I think we can take really good advantage of that. And I think Taman's finally going to figure out Tyrese. I think he kind of already did last year at Hilton.
Right.
And just we never really play well at Austin, so I don't
Right.
really want to talk about that game. But yeah, I don't think Texas is back when it comes to hoops. I know y'all just got us in football. Y'all can have that, whatever. But yeah, it's definitely raising some eyebrows that it took a heroic shot from Max.
And speaking to that, the problem with the backcourt size, Tyrese Hunter wasn't on the floor in the final minutes of that game. So I think at stretches they're not even going to be able to play those two together.
Yeah.
So, hate to see it. Even more so, you kind of love to see it. So, feels bad for Texas. I think they'll still be fine. But again, and two, if you are, if you're the head coach, you're probably picking Max Abmas over Tyrese Hunter, and you don't know what that does to confidence, to the locker room. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. So
Yeah.
something to keep an eye on. Another couple upsets. Mizzou lost to Jackson State, as we've said. That was in Columbia. That was kind of a shocker. I don't know what Mizzou was favored, but I would guess 15, 20 points in that one. And they look like they've taken a step back. Kobe Brown has – I'm not sure if he might have been a second-round pick. He's on the Clippers right now. So that was a big loss for them. Kobe gave us buckets when we played Mizzou last year. So
now last year Mizzou, they looked like the Warriors. They did not miss a three. It was insane. Because
that Big 12 SEC challenge killed us.
Yeah, one of their kids is on the Lakers practice squad, but he was 55. I forgot his name, but he was nice.
Yeah,
like they were good last year. So yeah, they lost a lot of guys, and they play a close game in Minnesota too. That took more last game heroics. So
right. Minnesota should be bad too. So
they're the worst team in the Big Ten, hands down.
Yeah. A lot of interesting basketball across the country so far. It's going to get a lot spicier this week. I'm excited for a lot of these matchups. A lot of it, if you look on ESPN, it says like to be determined because it's so many tournaments. But a lot of good matchups, a lot of moving parts, a lot of tournaments. Iowa State kicks off on Thursday against VCU, Thanksgiving Day. So you had the day off. Iowa State football doesn't play till Saturday. So soak in some basketball this week. A lot of good games out there.
And as we soak in some basketball, I got to ask you this. There's going to be a lot of tournament MVPs this week. Who is your tournament MVP when it comes to Thanksgiving food?
Oh, on the plate. I didn't realize how controversial stuffing was until some talk in the newsroom. There's a lot of people in the newsroom that either have never had stuffing or don't like stuffing. And I don't understand what's not to like. I mean, it's bread and spices. I honestly, I've never made stuffing. It tastes good, so I eat it. Stuffing's up there for me.
Stuffing's not my favorite. It was something like as a kid I never touched.
Okay.
But now
I can see the appearance of it. It doesn't look that appetizing, but it tastes
like mush.
Yeah.
But and I was more like if it visually looks good, I'll eat it.
Right.
But as I've gotten older, it's grown on me. Stuffing's I don't know if it's my top. I don't know if it's my MVP, but it's a 6-man.
Sure.
It's like it's in that corner of the plate. You'll dig at it. When you need it, you go, hey, we need you. We need good minutes out of you. Come on.
And they'll deliver. They'll deliver. I'm telling you.
They'll get a few stops. They'll knock down a 3. But for me, the cliche is mac and cheese. The mac and cheese has to be top tier. Especially coming from an African-American family. We do not play about the mac and cheese. So if it isn't that, something else that has grown on me is yams. It's like sweet potatoes.
Okay.
And like with the marshmallow and like brown sugar. Oh, dude. Signed, sealed, delivered. That is a dark horse in March Madness right there. Yams. Okay. If you haven't tried them, try them.
Yam time.
Yeah. And then but yeah, I think my MVP, it's got to be the mac and cheese.
Okay.
At the end of the day, baked, lightly brown on the top, gooey in the center. I mean, just wow.
I'm going to throw out some other. I think this is my big 3: stuffing, mashed potatoes, and gravy, and green bean casserole.
Oh,
What's not to like? Where did I lose you at green bean casserole?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow. That watery mush.
That's the go-to. That's the big 3. Hate them or love them.
I'm disappointed. I'm going top 3. I'm going I'm going mac and cheese. I'm going yams. And then I'm going to go with a sleeper. Turkey with gravy, white meat.
Ooh, okay.
People
A
say it's a
clear
little dry, but
distinction
that's what
there.
the gravy's for,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, got it. And also, like, the best Thanksgiving plate is where, like, everything is just one thing. Like, it's all
yeah,
mushed together. Like, there's no clear space left on your plate, and it all
right.
just kind of starts to taste the same towards the
Yeah.
end of it. So, no way to go wrong.
It's going to be well, it's sad. It's going to be my first Thanksgiving not at home, That kind of
Yeah.
sucks. But hopefully hopefully we can me and me coworkers can get together and do something. So
News
we're
never
looking forward to
stops.
it.
I'm working all 5 days this week, so I hear you.
You're an animal. You're an absolute animal.
Someone's got to do it. All
Yeah.
right, Nigel. Any shots at the end of this? Anything you want to talk about before we get out of here?
I do want to give a quick. I want to keep the women's basketball in the loop as much as we can, just because of the year and the star power that they have this year. But it's the Wild Wild West, dude. Everyone's losing.
Yeah,
Everyone's losing. Iowa lost dropped a big one to Kansas State
tough.
last week, and it kind of that huge shock that the LSU Colorado loss, the LSU Colorado game brought to a lot of the fans. It's not as shocking anymore. Virginia Tech dropped one to Iowa. It's like all these teams are losing. UConn loses one early. So like all these teams you think are going to be in the Final Four are dropping one early. So I mean, it's going to show that any team is beatable on any given day. And I like that parity and that brutality is not only so prevalent in the men's side of things, but it's moving on. It's like a virus. It's moving on to the women's side now too. So it's making for exciting basketball on both the men and women's side. And any women's tournaments, if you guys can watch them, please do, because it's going to be some high level basketball.
And you got some drama down there in Baton Rouge. It looks like some Angel Reese not handing in tests on time, or some drama with some mom drama down there. So
mama drama.
A lot of moving parts down there in Baton Rouge. Kim Mulkey gonna have to navigate some of that.
And I think she is. I think just saying, "Hey, sit down. You're not playing."
Yeah.
And a lot of games that don't matter. I think it's more of sending a mental message that like this is not to be played around with. And she's hasn't played that well. Her first shot of the year was an air ball. So I think we got to hit the reset button with her, and I think that's what we're doing right now. And if there's anybody in the country that I think can handle the egos that NIL may have brought LSU, it's Kim Mulkey. So I'm confident that they'll be back on the train. They'll get off the struggle bus. They're already kind of doing that. Michaela Williams, freshman out of Shreveport, dude, nasty.
The business,
nasty. I mean, it's poetry in motion. On the dude, her shot is so smooth. Excited to see what she's going to bring. I'm excited to go to the Virginia Tech game on the 30th. It's going to be a great matchup in Baton Rouge. So I feel like I'll get a better gauge once I see those ladies in person. So,
well, happy Feast Week, everyone. We're excited for some Iowa State basketball, some better competition. Let's see how the Cyclones stack up in Orlando, and we'll be with you next week.
Yes, sir. Happy Thanksgiving to all of Cyclone Nation. We love you. We love you lots.